Good morning, School of Light. Seferino Beta here. We are a Bible study through the mail system. So if you're in search of a Bible study that is already laid out, formatted, and we have Bible studies for ages 4 through adult in 50 plus different languages, let us know. We'll send it to you. And the way it works is we send it to you, you answer the questions, it's prepaid and everything. It comes back to us, we grade it, we make record, and when we finish, or when you finish a series, we send your certificate of completion. Now, we're in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 13. Happy New Year, by the way. If a prophet, let's just hop right to chapter 13 and 14. If a prophet, one who foretells by dreams, appears among you and announces to you a miraculous sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder of which he has spoken of takes place, and he says, let us now follow other gods, gods that you have not known, and let us worship them, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all of your heart and with all of your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. That prophet or dreamer must be put to death because he has preached rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. He has tried to turn you away from the Lord your God, commanded you to follow. The way that the Lord your God commanded you to follow. You must purge the evil from among you. If your very own brother or your son or daughter or the wife you love or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, let us go and worship other gods. These are gods that neither you nor your fathers have known, gods of the peoples around you, whether near or far from one end of the land to the other. Do not yield to him or listen to him. Show him no pity. Do not spare him or shield him. You must certainly put him to death. Your hand must be first in putting him to death, and then the hands of all the people. Stone him to death, because he tried to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Then all of Israel will hear and be afraid, and no one among you will do such an evil thing again. It's so, um, it's important. It's repeated over and over in the Old Testament. Do not worship other gods. Don't follow the nations around you. They'll uh, entice you. You gotta stick to our way, to God's way. To stay close to me. It's kind of like God's saying, so you have the strength to take the possession of the land that you're going to take possession of. What's the opposite? If you don't, obviously you won't have the strength. Chapter 13, verse 12. If you hear it said about one of the towns the Lord your God has given you to live in, that the wicked men have arisen among you. Excuse me. Have risen among you and have led the people of their town astray, saying, let us go worship other gods. Then you must inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. And if it is true, and it has been proved that the detestable thing has been done among you, you must certainly put to the sword all who live in that town, destroy it completely, both its people and the livestock, gather all the plunder in the town in the middle of the public square, and completely burn down the town and all its plunder as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. It is to remain a ruin forever, never to be rebuilt. None of those condemned things shall be found in your hands, so that the Lord will turn from his fierce anger. He will show you mercy, have compassion on you, and increase your number as he promised on oath to your forefathers, because you obey the Lord your God, keeping all his commands that I am giving you today, and doing what is right in his eyes. So he's saying, if you see somebody or a group or a village of people that are worshiping this, and they're trying to pull in people of God to worship a false god or whatever, destroy that town, destroy that city, and put them to the sword. And today it seems like Christian people, and it has to be a cultural thing, we're just so mamsy-pamsy about, well, I don't want to say this because the world's going to say I'm judging them. And, well, in times of battle, in times of war, do you have time to be mamby-pamby? Do you have time to... You don't. And I'll tell you what that attitude over the recent generations has caused. It's caused a world, especially here in the United States, where killing babies is legal. and not getting married and having kids is cool. And it's formed and spawned a bunch of influencers in this world that have led so many people astray. You know, so let's go into chapter 14. You are the children of the Lord your God. Do not cut yourselves or shave the front of your heads for the dead, for you are a people holy to the Lord your God. Out of all the people on the face of the earth, the Lord has chosen you to be his treasured possession. Do not eat any detestable thing. These are the things you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. You may eat any animal that has a split hoof divided in two that chews the cud. However, of those that chew the cud, or those that have a split hoof completely divided, you may not eat the camel, the rabbit, or the coney. Although they chew the cud, they do not have a split hoof. They are ceremonially unclean for you. The pig is also unclean, although it has a split hoof. It does not chew the cud. You are not to eat their meat or touch their carcasses. Of all the creatures living in the water, you may eat of any that has fins and scales, but anything that does not have fins and scales you may not eat, for it is unclean. You may eat any clean bird, but these you may not eat: the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, the black kite, and any kind of falcon, any kind of raven, the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, the little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the cormorant, the stork, any kind of heron, the hoop o, and the bat. All flying insects that swarm are unclean for you to eat. Do not eat them. But any winged creature that is clean you may eat. Do not eat anything you find already dead. You may give it to an alien living in any of your towns, and he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner. But you are a people holy to the Lord. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Interesting. All by itself, just like the last sentence. Actually, it's part of the rest of the sentence of the verses. Be sure to set aside a tenth of all your field's produce each year. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, oil, and firstborn of your herds and flocks, present in the presence of the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. But if that place is too distant, and that you have been blessed by the Lord your God and cannot carry your tithe, because this place where the Lord will choose to put his name is so far away, then exchange your tithe for silver, and take the silver with you, and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like: cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance in their town. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce and store it in your towns. So the Levites, which are the priests, and the aliens, the fatherless and the widows who live in your towns, may eat and be satisfied, and so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. So nowadays, we have huge amounts of taxes, right? We have federal tax, state tax, God, we have bread tax, we have all these stupid taxes. Back then it was just, hey, it's 10% of your produce. We're going to give it to the Levites. And who were the Levites? They were this tribe that was dedicated to worshiping and running the temple and stuff. But also I notice here that it says that these Levites, or their allotment, will feed them, of course, but also feeds the widows and the fatherless who live in these towns. And of all these taxes that we have as Americans pay, it's very inefficient. I mean, if you take in consideration the average person making over $50,000 a year is probably, even with the new significant tax reduction from the federal, I'd say 25 cents out of every dollar is very plausible. When I was in Tennessee and making that kind of money, I think my taxes were more like 35%. And we have so much here in the United States. I'm not saying that we're just a bunch of waste, but back then, 1 million plus people, probably 5 or 6 million people, were paying 10%, taking care of the widows and the fatherless. And Now we're paying way more percent, and there's so many homeless, and there's so many widows and fatherless out there that aren't being taken care of. Um, the other part I want to mention, I think, on chapter 14, something that passes my mind is why is all these don't eat the owl, don't eat this, but you can eat the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle. And so many people I've run into in life say, there's all of these rules and regulations, and in this case, I think it was, I mean, pork. You eat pork. I ate pork yesterday. Um, but the pork back then, if you didn't cook it right, if it was in a pig pen and it got, what was that one triluculosis or some kind of like a parasite that goes into the hoofs, and it could go into the meat. And if you don't cook the meat, eat it right, then you can get sick. Same thing with seafood that is not with scales. Like here in the Bible, it says you can eat whatever has scales and fins, but anything that doesn't. So if you eat a lot of crustaceans, um, it can affect you in not in small amounts, but if you did it every day, it can affect you negatively, your health. What other thing do I see here that I can share and meditate on with you guys? Well, the main thing is this: going into the new year, if you're focusing on a relationship with God, focus on that. And remember these words and that I've been reading here right lately, that, don't go after other gods. Don't bow down to them. Don't be enticed by your neighbor or your friend. What is other gods nowadays in America? Most people in America don't know what a Ashtaroth is, or a Baal, or Moab, or is it Moab? It's yeah, I think it's Moab, a place, and also it was like a god. And so we don't know that, but what are our gods nowadays? Well, whatever you're seeking after with 100% of your insides, your gut, you're coming after to find um, whatever it is in America or the world. It could be you want positions of power, you want authority. Maybe something in your past has hurt your ego or something, and you really, really, really have to feel like you have to accomplish something amazing that very few others do, so that people can listen to you. Or what would be another thing? A guy, is looking for this fine girl, and the girl's looking for the fine guy. And it's really, you find them, and I found them, but did it last? Will it last? Are you guys a good, couple? Are you a compatible? You know, is working 12 hours a day really the best life you can live? You know, and I understand working 12 hours a day for a year or two or something so you can set up a business that continues to pay you for life. But 12 hours a day for 20, 30, 40 years, seeing people around you having heart attacks, and you're just stuck in this 12-hour workday, whether it's sales or if it's in the factory. Um, I don't know, guys. You only live once and you have so much energy. What are you spending that energy on? That's the question I ask myself a lot. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. 2019 is here with whether you like it or not. And, I'm going to approach it more thoughtfully. Uh, I'm going to do something different, um, but it's not just saying I'm going to do something different. I have intentions and plans and goals that I'm breaking down right now to help guide my everyday activities, so that at the end of this year, one of my spiritual goals is to read through this every day, meditate on it every day, and let that absorb into my spirit. That's a spiritual goal that I have, and I'm not sure what your goals are, but one of them, if all your goals are just material or whatever, I would suggest focusing on putting some goals in this in your spiritual life and in your relationship with your family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, whatever. Well, that's it for me. God bless. Have a good day.